Ryan stepped closer, noticing the strain in her eyes, the kind that came from holding too much for too long. The evening breeze carried dust from the empty road, and her expensive heels wobbled slightly on the uneven surface. She wasn't used to this place, or to needing help from anyone. Ryan opened the hood, glancing back at her trembling hands. "Rough day?" he asked softly. She let out a broken laugh. "You have no idea." He didn't push for details. Instead, he just nodded and said, "It's okay. You're safe here." Something inside her cracked at those simple words. She watched him work. The rhythm of his hands steady and sure, as if he had fixed machines his whole life. There was something calming about the way he moved. No rush, no arrogance, no judgment. Just quiet patience. His daughter, a little girl with bright eyes and messy curls, peeked from behind the workshop door. "Daddy," she called. Ryan smiled. "It's okay, Ella. Just helping someone." Ella walked out, curiosity shining on her face as she stared at the stranger. The woman blinked, overwhelmed by the warmth in this ordinary place. The woman stepped back, leaning against the car as she tried to steady her breathing. Her world was one of numbers, deadlines, boardrooms, and constant pressure. She hadn't cried in years, not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't afford to. Here, standing in front of a small-town mechanic, she suddenly felt more seen than she had in any penthouse office. Ella tugged her sleeve gently. "Are you sad?" she asked innocently. The woman swallowed, a little. Ella nodded, as if she understood more than a child should. Ryan tightened a bolt and wiped sweat from his forehead. "You're lucky," he said calmly. "It's just a jammed coil and a blocked filter. Easily fixed." She exhaled shakily. "Lucky. Today's been anything but." Ryan glanced at her again, noticing the exhaustion around her eyes, the way she kept rubbing her temples. "Cars break," he said. "People do too. Doesn't mean they can't be fixed." She froze at the words. No one in her life ever talked to her like that. No softness, no wisdom, just demands and expectations. She whispered, "I wish it were that simple." Ryan placed the tools down and straightened up. "Maybe it is," he replied gently. "Sometimes you just need someone to look." She stared at him as if he had said something impossible. In her world, vulnerability was weakness. Here, it sounded human. Ella climbed into the driver's seat and giggled. "Daddy, it smells funny in here." Ryan smiled. "That's because the filter's older than you." The woman actually laughed, a small, surprised sound that felt foreign on her tongue. "I can replace it," Ryan said, "but you might need a minute to rest." She hesitated. Rest. The word itself felt like a luxury. She had slept only 3 hours the previous night, caught between board meetings and crisis calls. But something about Ryan's voice, steady, patient, made her feel safe enough to agree. She sat on an overturned crate near the garage entrance. Ella sat beside her without hesitation. "My daddy fixes everything," Ella announced proudly, "even broken toys." The woman smiled. "That must be nice." Ella shrugged. "He says people are harder to fix than toys, but he tries anyway." The woman's throat tightened. She wished someone had ever tried for her. Ryan checked the engine again, humming under his breath. The woman watched him, noticing the small details of the oil stains on his shirt, the faded tattoo on his arm, the careful way he handled each part. He didn't know her status, her wealth, her title, and for the first time, she didn't want to tell him. She didn't want to be the billionaire CEO who had slipped away from her guards. She wanted to be just a woman who needed a moment to breathe. When Ryan looked back at her, he simply said, "Almost done." The sky darkened into shades of purple and gold, and crickets began to hum in the distance. The woman felt her shoulders slowly loosen. She didn't remember the last time she sat still without a phone buzzing in her hand. Ella offered her a small packet of cookies. "Daddy says, sharing is kind." The woman smiled, touched by the gesture. "Thank you." As she took a bite, she realized she hadn't eaten since morning. Ryan walked over, wiping his hands. "Your engine will run better now," he said. "But you look like someone who needs more than a fix." The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. She wasn't used to people noticing her feelings, only her decisions. "I've had a long day," she admitted quietly. "Long week, long year." Ryan nodded. "Life gets heavy." She breathed out, a slow, fragile release. "You have no idea." Ryan leaned against the car beside her. "Maybe not your exact troubles, but I know what it's like to carry weight alone." His eyes softened. "It's harder when you don't let anyone help." She looked away quickly, blinking back sudden tears. "Help isn't something I ask for." Maybe that's the problem," he said gently. She didn't answer, couldn't answer. Ella reached out again, holding her hand with small fingers. It startled her how much comfort that tiny touch brought. She closed her eyes, letting herself feel something she had denied for years. When she finally opened them, Ryan was studying her carefully, not with curiosity, but with understanding. "You don't have to say anything," he murmured. "Just breathe. This place is quiet enough for that." She nodded shakily, grateful for permission she didn't know she needed. A distant phone buzzed in her jacket pocket. Her security team, probably frantic. She didn't reach for it. For once, she didn't care about the consequences. The world could wait 10 more minutes. Ryan tapped the engine lightly. "There." good as new. She stood slowly, brushing dust from her clothes. Thank you, she said quietly. For the fix. Ryan smiled. And for the break, she added, surprising herself. His smile widened. Anytime Ella waved, come back again. The woman actually felt herself blush. Maybe I will, she said softly, even though she wasn't sure why those words came so easily. When she slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. It purred beautifully. Ryan stepped back. She rolled down the window. Can I ask you something? He nodded. Why were you kind to me? You don't even know who I am. Ryan shrugged. Because you looked like someone who forgot what kindness feels like. The words hit her harder than she expected. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She finally whispered, you're right. Ryan leaned down slightly. Then remember it. You deserve to. Her breath caught. No one had told her she deserved anything ever. She drove away slowly, watching the small workshop disappear in the rearview mirror. For the first time in years, she felt something shift inside her, something warm, something light. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know if she would return, but she did know one thing. That mechanic and his little girl had fixed more than her engine. They had sparked something she thought she had lost forever. And as the night settled in around her, she whispered to herself, maybe I can fix my life too. And for once, she believed it. She stood there quietly, letting the warmth of his words settle into the parts of her that had been cold for years. Strength. She had been called powerful, brilliant, unstoppable, but never strong in the way Ryan meant. His definition wasn't about wealth or dominance. It was about the human heart. She looked at his daughter, Ella, who was smiling proudly at her father, and something inside the woman softened. She had built skyscrapers, negotiated billion-dollar deals, and commanded boardrooms, but she had never known the simple, grounding comfort of someone believing in her humanity. As Ryan closed the hood, she found herself unable to look away from his steady presence. He wasn't intimidated by her, nor impressed by the brand of her car. He treated her like a person, just a person. You okay? He asked, gently wiping grease from his hands. She nodded, but her voice trembled when she replied, I think so. It felt strange admitting it. She was a woman the world saw as unbreakable. But tonight, she had cracked in somehow. Instead of falling apart, she felt like she was finally breathing. Thank you, she whispered, barely audible. Ryan leaned against the car, arms crossed loosely. Most people think fixing things is about strength, he said, but really, it's about patience. His words struck her again. Patience was something she never allowed herself, not in her meetings, not in her personal life, not even in her own thoughts. Everything had always needed to be fast, efficient, flawless. She wondered how many pieces of herself she had lost in the rush. Ella gently tugged the hem of her sleeve. You want to see my drawings? The little girl asked shyly. The woman smiled. I'd love to. Ella ran inside and returned with a stack of crayon-colored papers, flickers, cars, stars, and a picture of her and her dad holding hands in front of the garage. The woman's throat tightened as she flipped through them. These are beautiful, she said. Ella beamed. Daddy says pictures show what your heart feels. The billionaire stiffened slightly. What did her heart feel? She wasn't sure she even remembered. She had spent so long ignoring it that it seemed like a foreign language. But as she watched Ella twirl playfully near the headlights, she felt something, stir something, familiar yet distant. Ryan watched her, noticing the change in her expression. You look like someone who hasn't had a break in a very long time, he said softly. She let out a shaky breath. Years, she admitted. Maybe longer. He nodded, as if he understood more than she said. You don't have to carry everything alone, he told her. She almost laughed. Almost. I built an empire, she said. I learned a long time ago that no one stands with you at the top. Ryan tilted his head. Maybe that's why the top feels so cold. She blinked, stunned by the accuracy. For the first time, she didn't feel defensive. She felt exposed in a way that didn't hurt. A way that felt freeing. She looked away toward the quiet road stretching into the darkness. I don't even know why I came here, she murmured. Ryan gave a small smile. Sometimes the heart drives even when the mind can't explain. She swallowed hard. It was true. She had driven until her thoughts blurred, until she found herself in a place where no one knew her name or expected anything from her. A part of her wasn't ready to let that go. When she tried to speak again, her voice broke. I didn't want anyone to see me like this. Ryan's expression softened. Like what? He asked. She hesitated, weak. Ryan shook his head immediately. No, like human. She froze. No one in her world described humanity as strength. You know, he continued, even machines break down when they're overworked. Doesn't make them worthless. Just means they need care. She felt her eyes sting. No one had ever compared her to something fixable. Everyone expected perfection. Ryan, with his simple wisdom, was rewriting the rules she lived by. Ella ran over then, hugging her father's leg. Daddy, can she stay for dinner? She asked innocently. The woman blinked in surprise, taken aback by the child's pure heart. Ryan gave a gentle chuckle. Ella, but the little girl insisted. She looks lonely. The woman felt her chest clench. Children had a way of seeing truths adults hid. Ryan looked at her, waiting, not pushing, just offering. She hesitated, the old instinct to refuse rising immediately, but her loneliness was louder. "I'd like that," she said quietly. Ella cheered, and the woman couldn't help but smile. Inside the small workshop kitchen, the scent of warm soup filled the air. It was simple vegetables, broth, herbs, but it felt like home, in a way gourmet meals never had. The woman watched Ryan move around the kitchen, steady and sure. There was a tenderness in the way he cared for his daughter, a gentleness in every gesture. She sat at the small wooden table, running her fingers over its worn edges. Everything here was imperfect, scratched floors, mismatched chairs, faded curtains, but it felt more real than anything she owned. It felt alive. It felt honest. Ella sat beside her, swinging her feet. "Do you have kids?" she asked. The woman hesitated. "No," Ella nodded thoughtfully. "Do you have friends?" The woman paused again. "A few." Ella tilted her head. "Do they make you smile?" The billionaire swallowed. "Not like you do." Ella grinned widely and leaned against her arm. The woman felt her heart squeeze in a way she didn't expect. She wasn't used to affection, especially not the unconditional kind. It shook her softly, gently, like a memory she'd forgotten she once had. After dinner, she helped wash the dishes, surprising both herself and Ryan. She had never done something so simple with another person. The warm water, the quiet clinks of dishes, it felt grounding. "Thank you for this," she said as she handed him a plate. He dried it slowly. "You needed a place to breathe," he replied. "Everyone does." She looked down, her voice hesitant. "No one ever gives me space to breathe." Ryan shook his head. "Then they don't know you." "Not really." She froze, stunned by how deeply he saw through her. The night grew quieter, the workshop lights glowing softly against the dark sky. When she stepped outside, the cool breeze brushed her face, carrying the earthy scent of the small town. She stood there, arms wrapped around herself, trying to absorb everything she had felt in the past hour, things she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Ryan joined her, leaning beside her car. "You don't have to rush back," he said. "The world won't fall apart without you for one night." A tear slipped down her cheek. "But I might fall apart away from this." Ryan turned toward her, his eyes steady. "Maybe falling apart is how rebuilding starts." She let the words settle. No one had ever given her permission to break, not until now. She took a shaky breath. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Ryan looked at her, sincerity shining through. "Because you deserve someone who sees your heart, not your status." She felt another tear slide down. "I don't even know who I am without my status," Ryan gently replied. "Then maybe tonight is the first time you get to learn." She laughed softly through her tears, a mix of pain and relief. "I don't know why I'm telling you all this." Ryan shrugged. "Sometimes strangers are easier to be honest with." She looked at him carefully. "You don't feel like a stranger." The words escaped before she could stop them. Ryan smiled, a small, warm smile. "Neither do you." In that moment, something shifted between them. Something quiet but undeniable. The kind of shift that doesn't come from attraction alone, but from connection, real, raw, unexpected connection. She took a deep breath. "Can I come back tomorrow?" Ryan nodded. "You can come back any time." Ella, half asleep in the doorway, mumbled, "Please come back." The woman smiled, her heart full for the first time in years. She got into her car, the engine humming perfectly now. As she drove away, she watched the workshop fade into the distance. But something stayed with her: hope. Not the kind money buys, not the kind accomplishments bring, but the kind that comes from being seen, heard, and understood. And as she whispered into the quiet night, he fixed more than the car. She realized the truth. She had found something she never knew she needed. Someone who taught her the one thing she couldn't buy: healing, and maybe, if she was brave enough to return, a new beginning.